Well, welcome back to Valley Hoops Insider, the website, the podcast, and we call this edition of it Voices of the Valley. We like to get together with the people that are broadcasting or writing about Missouri Valley Conference, Ohio Valley Conference, teams, players, etc. And today we have the privilege of having Jonathan Hood on with us. He is the play-by-play voice of the Illinois Chicago Flames. He also does baseball for them, a million other things. He's a media conglomerate all by himself. Jonathan, thanks for joining us today. You look like maybe you're at home.
Father Harry, I am at home. This doesn't look like Springfield, Missouri back here, does it? Does it
No,
look like Terre Haute, maybe?
no, none of those places.
Finally off the road and at home. My wife didn't even recognize me. She said, "Who are you?" It's like I'm the voice of the Flames. She
There
goes,
you
"Okay."
go.
She goes, "Okay." The voice of the Flames. Get the garbage.
That's right. Cut some grass, take out the garbage. It's spectacular. I have to say that I'm like tremendously what's the word I want to use? Envious of Jonathan Hood. Let's see. You have or have had shows Under the Hood, Straight from the Hood. People call you J Hood. You have a much cooler name than Harry. I just think you can put so many things with your name and the various products you do. I'm just envious.
For many years, people thought it was just some wacky FM handle, but actually, it is my family name from the great state of Arkansas. We grew up as Hoods, and that's who I am. But it's an actual real name. You can do a lot with that name, good and bad.
Yeah,
I prefer the good of the last name
absolutely.
Hood. Yeah.
Under the Hood, though, that's my favorite one. ESPN 1000. We've talked before. You're a WWE guy and have had tons of shows about that MMA. You're so well rounded. You do the baseball for the Flames as well, yes?
Yes, really enjoy doing that. That's a dream come true. All of it's a dream come true. But to
Yeah,
be able to be the voice of a team. What I want, Harry, is to be in this gig so long that they recognize me. I'll raise my cane after 40 or 50 years of being the voice of the Flames. Because when you travel, and I listen to so many college sports
mm,
on Sirius XM, or if I'm on my travels, if I'm going to Terre Haute, if I'm going,
right.
and driving to Peoria, you love to be able to pick up the little channels that have college sports on it, baseball, basketball, football. So that's something I've done for a long time as a kid. The the connection I've had with sports is the radio, and to be able to pick up those
Me too.
games and hear what's going on. And so I don't know if they're doing that as with kids anymore, but I know that as a kid, that was the reason why I fell in love with sports, is to listen to it on the radio and just imagine what I'm listening to.
Same way. I'm older than you, but same way. Like just the radio. It's a medium I just love, and it's so different now, and I appreciate all these newer mediums too. But I love the radio growing up. Um, the Bears. I wrote this down. I gotta do right by Justin Fields. I watched your video about how the Bears were moving on from Justin Fields. Before we get to UIC and the Missouri Valley and Flames basketball and all that, you're all over the Chicago beat in every way because of your other radio shows and all of that. Uh, Justin Fields moves on, and probably good for everybody in some sense. But yeah, it's a new day in Chicago. And do you have confidence in that leadership team that runs the Bears organization that they'll get it right?
I believe so, Harry. And the reason why is because it all feels different. It
Hmm.
feels different. And I know that from a fan standpoint, oh, you've heard it all before, but it is different. And here's how I noticed when I was at Hallis Hall, where the Bears do their practices, and that's where the offices are. I saw George McCaskey
Hmm.
during training camp. And usually McCaskey would be in the offices, on the computer, having meetings and all this. And I saw George McCaskey with his grandkids, just walking around, talking to fans. George McCaskey's always been, friendly with the fans. He worked in a tickets office before he became the head man over the Chicago Bears. And so he had that personality and that personable relationship with
Hmm.
the fans. And I thought usually a McCaskey would be in the offices saying, do this, do that, do this. Now he's still in charge, but this is all Ryan Poles, the general manager. Could you imagine going into the office and you have the feeling that, hey, you know what, this is my team. I can be able to do whatever I like, and a
Yeah.
McCaskey's beak is not in it at all.
Wow.
That's something different. That's why it feels different to me. Ryan Poles and also Kevin Warren, the head of the Chicago Bears as president, they have a different feeling up there because for many years, those that didn't know football ran the football operation. Ted Phillips, a nice man, but he was a financial guy, and he
Mhm.
was making it. He was in the draft room. It's like Ted doesn't know anything about football, but yet he's the so that's how mom and pop the Bears once were.
Right.
And I feel like with the infrastructure now, you have football people understanding football things. And because for many years, Harry, there was a time the Bears didn't even have a general manager in name.
Wow.
Imagine that in the 2000s. No
Yeah.
general, a pro personnel person, but not a GM in
Right.
name. So I feel like it's different because football people understand what's needed for the team. It doesn't feel like the same old, same old. I've seen it since the 80s.
I think that's exciting. Not that I'm a Bears fan, but I think Chicago having something kind of dominant in any sport makes the whole sport better. It's such a gigantic city with people around the country that want to love or hate Chicago. And then Chicago is such a great city and a large city that I think if the Bears are relevant, it makes the NFL better. I hope they do get better.
Yeah, I just with the Chicago Bears, it galvanizes the city. This is the one of the few times that Cubs fans and Sox fans are not fighting one another. This is where Hawks fans and Bulls fans come together.
Mm.
This is where the college football landscape all comes together because everyone supports the Bears. It's the thing that drives the bus the most in Chicago sports. And so when the Bears are great, it is unbelievable. I still remember as a kid in 1985 when the Bears won the Super Bowl.
Super
And I
Bowl
looked
shuffle, baby.
and I looked at my block and I looked down and there was not one car in the streets, not one car. Like everyone was at home, man, woman, child, goldfish, dog. They were all watching the Bears during that time, and
That's
so
awesome.
I think that's the thing that it's like no one was lingering about when the Bears are in the playoffs or when they're in the Super Bowl. So I just think the one thing that brings the city together is the Bears, and the hope is that they can have some successful ways because we haven't seen that around here on a regular basis in a long time.
Well, one of my favorites growing up, Jack Concannon. You remember him? I liked him as a quarterback way back in the day with the Bears. We should talk about the UIC Flames. Season ends and Luke Yaklich gets fired. Surprise level 1 to 10, Jonathan Hood. On how surprised were you?
That is a 6
Okay.
for me, a 6. And the reason why is because well, I should start by saying this. UIC fired a good man
Yep.
and Luke Yaklich.
Yep.
And here's why he's a good man. In my travels, I've never seen a head coach go into one of the grocery stores, the convenience stores on the road, and pick up 2 or 3 cases of water. Something a manager would do, maybe an
Sure.
assistant coach would do. Yaklich says, "No, I got it. I'll go and do that myself." I've never seen a head coach take it
Hmm.
upon himself, leading the charge on the charter
Hmm.
and start pulling luggage off the charter. Like usually, maybe a coach is there waiting for his bag, or maybe he's already on the bus. Yaklich is there pulling the luggage off. He's pulling the luggage out from underneath the bus. So I said, boy, this is so different than a leader
Yeah.
of men because usually you delegate. Harry, you've been around for a long time.
Right.
Usually someone delegates that, or that's the manager's job. Yaklich is there, and to be able to do that. So on that surface, as I noticed that, as I looked through the glass at the bus, I said, "Look at the coach. He's out there doing what managers do," and
Love that.
that impressed me. Second thing is that here's a guy here that was very personable, who would make sure he went out of his way to say thank you. Thanks for
Hmm.
broadcasting. Thanking me for broadcasting. The check's already in the bank. You don't have to thank me. It's UIC already thanked me. But that's who Yaklich was.
Hmm.
From the manager all the way up would say, hey, thanks for your effort, win or lose. Wore a lot of losses on his sleeve, emotional guy because he cared.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because I thought after the win against Southern Illinois on that first game of the tournament, I thought here's an opportunity here to build on something,
Hmm.
and he was not given the chance to do that. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm sad because, like you, I have great respect and appreciation for Coach Yak, and so we'll miss him in the league. I talk to him quite often, and he was the same with me. Just man, Harry, thanks. Those are great questions. Wait, I mean, like he was always pumping me up. I thought, wow, maybe I have a career in this. He thinks I do. So anyway, I really appreciated Luke, and we'll miss him, and he'll find a great job somewhere. He's a terrific coach and has had great success as an assistant coach, and we'll see what happens next. Lots of players leaving, as they always do when a coach gets the short haircut, and that's happening at UIC. It's happening at Southern Illinois. It's happening at Missouri State. On top of the great attrition we see all over the country this time of the year for all the teams. You guys have lost. The team didn't have a great record, but some really outstanding players have already declared for the portal and to transfer. It's going to be a complete rebuild for whoever they hire.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with CJ Jones because he made a tremendous jump from freshman to sophomore year.
He's from down my way, brother. That's why.
You St. Louis water. Is
right.
that what it is?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? The water in
right.
St. Louis? That young man from freshman to sophomore year was really amazing. And it's not just basketball, Harry. It is the demeanor. It is growing up. And I think that's part of it as well. It's one thing for him to be able to shoot the basketball a lot better, have more confidence, but the leadership was apparent. From one summer into the fall, it was a different CJ Jones. Wow. And so that, I mean, you take solace in that when you're a basketball program. He's moving on. Ethan Pickett comes from JUCO and played well. I remember that first game we played against Cincinnati, and he was unafraid. You know, usually in that spot, you kind of let the game come to you, just kind of, pick your spots. And I thought there was some aggression there from Ethan Pickett that I expected from the beginning. Lulls up and down with any young player. But again, catalyst in that win against Southern Illinois in the tournament. So it's going to be sad to see him go as well, along with seniors. No more Toby Okane and Isaiah Rivera, who had NCAA experience from his days at Colorado State. So it's the issue across the country, the landscape of having a kid for a year or two, and then that particular player going to greener pastures.
Yeah, we always say, the pastures might be greener, but you still got to mow it, so I hope they find good places, Yeah. And Rivera, he's one of those guys that's going to transfer for the third time, or maybe he's going to be a grad transfer and that changes it. But the landscape of what I call the portal pandemic is now, I think, going to hurt these young men and ladies when we think about the other, side of the coin in terms of being able to graduate and actually get their degrees. When you transfer, things don't process perfectly. And I try to think more long term. I mean, how many of these guys or ladies are going to play professionally, and how long will they be able to do that? And then what do they have later to do without degrees, without maybe some of those study habits or whatever, just because they've been, jerking from here to, jerked from here and jerked from there. Anyway, I wish them all well. And yeah, CJ Jones, wow. I just thought he was on the verge of becoming one of the top players in the league. Well, and he'll play well somewhere.
I've seen that hashtag on your Twitter, by the way, Portal Pandemic. Should be a T-shirt. Should be a T-shirt. I think because that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Kenny Williams, who I've done broadcasts for, we've been working together for about a decade. The Hall of Famer for UIC. During a timeout, he had a random thought. We're in the middle of the game. It's hoodie. Yeah. Taking the headphones up. Yeah. What is it? Because so when these kids transfer, will they ever get their number retired? I mean, will you see number retirements anymore? And I said, that's a random thought, but it's a great thought. Like, who's going to be around for 2+ years, 3 years to be able to be a great player to have their number retired?
Yeah.
That makes all the sense because legacy, I think, still matters to young people. But because there's no czar, and this is what we need. We need a czar in the NCAA to be able to stop this. Hey, look, I have no problem with young men and women getting paid, but there's got to be a cap on this because it has become the Wild West. And I think that from Kenny, when Kenny was telling me, what about the number retirement? Because his number is retired, with UIC. I said, it's a great point. Does that matter to the young person anymore? Do they care about the legacy at the institution that they're playing in? So that's another thing.
It's wild out there, as you mentioned. So, before I talk to you about the coaches and maybe who might replace Coach Yak, what is the pulse in Chicago? What I mean is in the Chicago landscape, I realize UIC isn't the top of the ladder in terms of the newspaper reporting or the television reporting, but how relevant is the Flame program to the typical Chicago fan?
I think it's relevant when you start seeing more winning. And I think that's the whole thing with a big city. When you win, that's when you are able to get more press clippings and more TV cameras that's around.
Sure.
Because we're so busy, especially on the pro sports side. I mean, if there's success, I mean, Loyola got their share of success and some acclaim because they will turn things around the A10.
Right.
DePaul hiring their new head coach has been a headline or two that we've talked about on the air. Northwestern and boy Collins has turned around for Northwestern in a big way.
Yeah, good for him.
But we're not in the Bill Carmody days, the salad days of Bill Carmody. We're not in those days anymore.
Mm.
So I think that all that comes with is winning, because I think that's the whole part of it. When UIC hires their new head coach, there'll be cameras everywhere. People will ask questions. What's the commitment level for UIC? How will they take another step? And so I think that's always commonplace in our cities. Are you winning, or if there's change? That's where the cameras and the Pen and Mic Club come in.
So I told you before we started recording, I was going to have you break major news here for us. So tell us who the are there rumors out there? Who are they looking at? Who are people talking about that they're looking at or should be looking at?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. No,
I have no idea, Harry. But I'll tell you this. How about this? Here's a soundbite. You know, Luke Yaklich comes in as a defensive-minded coach and did a great job with Shaka Smart and with John Beilein in his career.
Yeah,
I think it could be very difficult for a coach to come in and say, "Here's our defensive-minded principles."
Sure.
Especially in an offensive league.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that Yaklich was dying inside, and I haven't talked to him about it yet. But I'm sure that it was like a death by 1,000 paper cuts to watch us go toe to toe with Drake, and for UIC to give up 100+ points. I believe in that game, because another great game for DeVries. And I'm sure that inside he's like, as a defensive-minded coach, he had to be going nuts. And what kids want to do is they want to get up and down the floor. And we'll see that in the NCAA tournament. As much as you and I respect a good defensive tap you pull, like when Virginia plays in this tournament, these kids want to get up and down the floor. So I would imagine that UIC looks for someone that can be able to have inventive offense, creative offense, so players can get up and down the floor. I think that that's part of it. I mean, I know that the Missouri Valley in particular can be rough and tumble, especially from the foul line down. It can be very physical, but ultimately, young players want to score and score at will. So I think that might be a direction UIC might go in.
Yeah, I think the Missouri Valley has been a strong defensive conference for years and years, but the last year and a half, the offenses have really changed in the league, and in part because of what Darren DeVries started bringing to the Valley at Drake, and now obviously Josh Schertz and the Indiana State Sycamores. They've added so much in it, and the whole league has kind of Belmont as well, more up and down, and it's changed a little bit. So you said your guess would be a more offensive minded guy. Do you think, I'm just kind of trying to pull stuff here, but pull out thoughts, is a guy that's head coached before, somebody with city ties, are those kinds of things that will matter, you think, to the fan base or to the administration?
I would say that someone from the Midwest may not matter. I think it might be someone, again, it's based on their philosophy. And of course, NIL matters too. That's for any hire that you make. You want to find out, the kind of backdrop or or what they know about NIL, or what they were able to draw in their previous places that they coached in. So I think that might be something that they look at. I know I can only speak for me, as if I was at UIC, I would definitely look for someone that would understand NIL to be able to, because that's where you are right now. Because it's one thing to promise playing time, but this is where we are now. Until there's a cap on this thing, that has to be someone that can be able to understand that. It can be great in front of an audience, in front of a Fortune 500 company, and there's plenty of them in Chicago that can be able to influence and cajole and talk and preach to say, hey, I'm the new coach, I'm the new face in town. Let's be able to move forward. Can't make promises, but if nothing else, you could try to influence as much as possible, because that's part of college athletics today until it changes.
And in that regard, how, from your vantage point, how has UIC managed the NIL stuff? What I mean is, do they have backing there? Are there people already plugged into that part of it, and it has a fertile ground to build from?
I have seen alums around the campus and at games for UIC. I've seen alums and the like on the road with us. They will go to various games. I am not privy though to the dark rooms of UIC and what they're talking about from a financial standpoint. But I have seen people, yes, that do care about the program, though they've been close to the program for a long time. What their social security number is, Pastor Harry, I don't have that. But if you but if you give me a couple of weeks, I can work on that
He
for
can dig on that. He can get under the hood and find that out.
you.
Um, do you have any guess at all? How, I mean, they need to sign somebody fairly quickly. Is there any, the rumblings, like how soon, quick, et cetera? Any thoughts about that?
I would say that you want to do it as quickly as possible during the NCAA tournament. I would say,
Hmm.
but and the reason why is because you want to hit the ground running. DePaul was able to hire their coach in Holtman, and they did that pretty quickly. Guess they had to because Porter Moser says I love Oklahoma. Put it out
Yeah.
there on Twitter. That I will tell you candidly, that surprised me very much so
Yeah.
because of his Chicago ties. And so
I could have thought of that
yeah,
being interesting to him, and obviously those rumors were out there, and then he put out that tweet. So I called him. Like I know Porter fairly well, and
yeah,
I said, hey, I thought that was classy by you to just say I'm not. If you're not interested, just say it so that it ends all of that. And so anyway, I thought that was cool of him, but
yeah.
but it surprised me as well because he does love the Windy City.
I also found it interesting that you put that curious tweet out. See, Pastor Harry likes to put out the curious tweets because they got press row talking because you had your list of things, your laundry list of things, and said coaching changes, soon or something along those
Yep.
lines. And so all of a sudden, press row, the guy from another school is asking me, "What do you think this means?" Shows me the phone. What do you think this means? I say, I think Pastor Harry knows someone's going to get fired here pretty soon or interested. And we thought that you're sourcing the Porter Moser back to Chicago thing, among other things that was happening in the conference.
I got to play it all close to the vest, but no, I knew some things were coming down, and I was sad about it, but you kind of got to tell people the drums are beating.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
so, yeah, I miss Porter a lot. I loved him in the league, and
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you too, just in your brief engagement with the Missouri Valley Conference, what's it been like for UIC and for Jonathan Hood in the new league?
Our first year, I mean, obviously it was something that our players had to learn. I think I told you
Mhm.
this before, Harry, that our first year it was quite the culture shock to go from the Horizon League to the Valley, and how it was a huge step up in class from the Horizon. This is not taking a shot at the Horizon. We're talking about a style of play that's
Right.
supposed to be across the board in the Valley, and our
Hmm.
kids are just. I know one of our kids said, "Hey, I thought I knew basketball, then I played in the Valley."
Wow.
Which says a lot, right?
Yeah, it does.
For any player with an ego, with a heart beating, he
Yeah,
feels like every
that's
player feels
right.
like they're the best, right? They feel like, but then when you have a player that at the end of the season is like, yeah, I thought I knew the game, but I got some work to do, and
Wow.
I thought that said a lot. I think that there was a jump in year two where I think there was a more of an understanding
Hmm.
of your assignment and an awareness of the teams in the valley. So for me, it's just been great. The travel's been great. And pretty close. A lot of the places in driving distance, so it's been great for me. But I think that one thing that I'm sure that you've talked about already, and I've talked about a little bit this morning, is that if coaches are leaving, like Coach Shirts, for instance, if coaches are leaving, you can understand why in some ways because there's no way that this league was not a two-bid league this year.
Right.
Sorry, I know that we have the tendency to cannibalize each other
Hmm.
because their teams are so tough and so close. I was really rooting for Indiana State and for Drake to be in the NCAA tournament because it's deserved. 4 or 5
Absolutely.
teams in the Mountain West, yeah, and versus what we've been able to do. I just I was very disappointed in that, and I feel like we're going to keep going on the slippery slope where a coach is going to throw his hands up and say, "Hey, man, we're playing the teams that want to play us. We're asking, and we're not getting teams that want to play us, and so we're playing the schedule that we can in the non-conference. This whole net nonsense and everything else. We're trying to play quality." and we have this one loss record, and we've been impressive, but yet it's not good enough. And
Right.
I could see down the line, not just this year, but moving forward, some coaches not being fired, but just saying, if I can't get at least a second bid, if the A10 can, and we can't,
Yeah.
the Big East making their complaints on Sunday into Monday. What about the Valley?
Yeah.
What about us?
I'm with you.
I'm very disappointed in that from the committee.
I talked to a pretty high up guy in the NCAA. This is before I guess before Loyola left, but after Moser had left.
Mhm.
And I said, man, how does this? It's just difficult. And he said, that's the rule now. Is if you get good, you get out. If you get good, you move on. Whether it's a player, a coach, a program. And shortly after that, Loyola was gone, and it's sad. I'm going all the way back to something you said: the legacy, the history, the fans being able to enjoy. If Coach Schertz leaves, and you wish him well, no matter what he happens to do, he's got to make his own decisions. But if he leaves, what that is for the whole Terre Haute, Indiana State folks, it's like, all right, we're finally on the map. Oh no, we're not. It's so difficult for the fans, I think, to all the way buy in. On the other side, Southern Illinois fires Brian Mullins, and his record wasn't great, but he was over 500. His kids graduated. They were involved in the community. Attendance went up in 23 over 22 and up over 24 over 23. Attendance is up. Grades are up. Graduation is up. They're winning over 50% of their games, and you're out. You're not doing a good enough job. What does that say to that fan base? Maybe something great. Maybe the fans are excited. We're going to get somebody great, but they had already bought in. And it's such a dynamic these days that I think is very, very difficult for those mid-major programs that we're talking about.
There's no doubt about that. And we were at those venues, on a day in which, let's see, Indiana State, they were not going to clinch because that was not when we played them late in the season. I think the perception was earlier in that calendar, I think that was in February, where I think fans thought, okay, UIC is coming to town, we're going to clinch. But that was not the clinching game. But yet it was sold out anyway.
Yeah.
UIC comes into town, and you can look at the calendar and say, what else can I do with my Friday night? We can go to dinner, we can go to movies. But you know what? Basketball's in town. The guys are in town. Let's go see them. I love that enthusiasm in cities that we go to across the valley. Where, December 30th, another example, Banterra Center, December 30th, you think, well, the students aren't here. You get on the bus like, well, it'll probably be a half a house here. I can understand the students are gone. They're back with their families. Sellout. Darn near sellout. Almost 8,000 plus on December 30th. And so and we're in town. And so I really love the fan base in that regard. But at the same time, if you're an athletic director, what are you measuring?
Right.
What are you measuring? I mean, ultimately, it's about anything else. It's about wins and losses, just like the pro teams I talk about every day. But ultimately, you look at the strength of schedule, you look at the attendance, you look at the acclaim that you're getting from your school. That has to matter sometimes too. And I thought that the Southern Illinois dismissal also caught me off guard. But change is part of sports, so can't be overly surprised.
Well, that was one of the things about that tweet that you talked about. I got to Arch Madness, and I talked to somebody, and they said, "Yeah, Mullins is going to get fired this weekend." I'm like, "What? That's not possible." And then I talked to somebody else, and they said, "Yeah, Mullins is, but if they lose tomorrow or lose tonight, they're done." I'm like, "That's insane," But there it was, and we all kind of thought Dana Ford would, had a chance to lose his job, and I was a little surprised by Luke. And if Coach Schertz leaves, we'll have a third of the head coaches in the Valley be gone, be different next fall.
Wow.
I mean, that's gigantic transformation, and at least 3, maybe all 4 of those programs with brand new rosters. I mean, you go from Jonathan Hood. He's seen all the teams. You've announced all the games. You can do those games in your sleep. I'm sure you do prep and all of that for each game, but you already know all those players. But a third of the league, you don't know anymore at all.
No. That's a fresh sheet on my Google page here to put a new line. Right. Before you could just add 1 or 2 names. Now it's 8 or 9. It's a whole brand new sheet I've got to do. So you're totally right about that. It shows you how how the word travels. When we were in Springfield, Missouri to play Missouri, that was the last game we played in the regular season. Cab driver said, "You're in town?" Like, yeah, I'm here for UIC Missouri State's. Like, yeah, we're gonna fire a coach. I said, what? He goes, yeah, I don't think Danny's gonna make it. It's like, well, I said, well, I mean, he's been here 5-6 years. I mean, now I'm hearing he's gonna be gone. like, okay.
That was a very good Springfield accent, by the way.
Spent a lot of time there. I spent a week there one day. Yes.
I hear that.
So,
listen, I don't want to keep.
It just shows you how the word travels in these cities when they hear that, and it's too bad. It really is.
It really is. And Dana's another guy I have just gigantic respect for. Like him a lot. Very involved in the community. He's checks every box except the wins and losses. And it's a bottom line gig anymore, and it always has been, but it seems more and more all the time now. Appreciate your time, your insights, your friendship. I'm glad I could come over and try to help save your life at the Missouri Valley tournament when they about kicked in your table where you were announcing from. That was amazing. That was just a fun little time too.
Yeah, I just Philip Skobal, physical guy, great kid from Serbia, runs right into the table, and it's not like I haven't seen that before. They weren't coming. If they were coming over the table, I would have moved. I would have made, I've got the lateral quickness of a rose bush, but I would have found a way to be able to move to the left or right in that spot. And Skobal right into the table. It didn't bother me because it was underneath the table. But even the great John Rooney, who I love so much, he was surprised. He says, "Way to go, Jonathan!" He was very happy that I didn't get hurt.
That's a pretty good Rooney too. You've got a career in this coming up, I think. Hey, tell people where they can find all of your. I mean, I know you're on YouTube and all kind of different places. Tell us where they can find your work.
Yeah, I'm on ESPN 1000 in Chicago, and there's an ESPN Chicago app you could download and listen to me on the Cap and J Hood Morning Show. And also, as Pastor Harry and I have a kinship in when talking about pro wrestling, I do a pro wrestling show on Sirius XM, Fight Nation. It is Busted Open on Sunday morning. So,
or Busted?
Busted, depending on the match. Depending on the match, but Busted Open on Sirius XM Fight Nation. So along with the UIC Flames and the wrestling show and the morning show, we stay busy.
You sure do, man. Okay, I got a wrestling question. Is The Rock really going to wrestle at the big one coming?
Yes,
or is it just going to be a lot of show? I mean, is he just show up, talk a lot, and
no, he's going to wrestle. He's going to wrestle on Saturday. He's 51, but he's a spry 51, and so he'll be in the ring with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns in Philadelphia. It should be fun.
Go get him, Rock. All right. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you, Jonathan Hood. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
That's Jonathan Hood. He's the voice of the UIC Flames. Give him a listen on all those different platforms we talked about. We're going to try to keep our ear to the ground and figure out what's happening with that coaching situation in Chicago. Thanks for being a part of the podcast today. Remember, since you've been there, make it a better place. We'll see you again real soon.